Jermaine Morgan, how you doing?
All is well, man. All is well. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Happy to have you. Again, thanks for agreeing to do this. I've been, checking you out for a while. I noticed that your YouTube channel just went over 40,000 subscribers. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and you've got a healthy amount of followers on Instagram also, and you're getting it happening. It seems like this time period, the COVID period, has been fruitful for you.
Yeah, it has. I've seen a lot of growth. Really over the last 2 years. It's like the latter part of 2019 coming into 2020. I've seen a lot of just growth. I don't know if it's because people have more time, they're at home. I don't know what it is, but I definitely saw an influx of growth for sure over that period.
One thing I found interesting is it seems like this period has been really good for folks that were doing something prior to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of brought that in, and then with the sort of captive audience, sorry for that, with this sort of captive audience, it seems like it's worked out pretty well, especially for folks that have the kind of quality content that you have and the kind of consistency that you have.
Yeah.
There's been a number of folks that, okay, pandemic is here. Okay, now what am I going to do? And then they try to reinvent themselves and try to totally change up and stuff. And some of them I think have been successful, somewhat successful. But I think maybe not as many of them have been as successful as those that I think kind of already had kind of an idea of what they were trying to do in the space before the pandemic hit.
Yeah. I think my opinion of that, I feel like, and you're a content creator as well, it's not a one-trick pony, man. It's always changing, and as a content creator, you're like in some form of fashion, you're always evolving. You're always, tweaking your channel, so to speak, tweaking the content. You're going from the thing of what do my viewers want to see, or what do I want to present to my viewers? What type of value, type of questions that I ask myself, what type of value do I want to add? And sometimes you can just get burnt out with doing the same type of content. So if you're just jumping in thinking, oh, I'm just going to start putting up videos, and because people know who I am, they're just going to run to the videos, you're in for a rude awakening, because it doesn't work that way. Yeah, it doesn't work that way at all.
No, we were talking just like right before we started rolling, and I was saying the thing about, I think that quality content, I think, will win out in the long run. But often it seems like the most important thing is just consistency and some sort of relevancy. Yeah. Even if the content isn't necessarily the best content. And we've all seen those videos where the quality of the video is not very good. It's on somebody's phone, it's outside, it's like you're hearing the sound of the wind and stuff. And the view gets like 2 million views in a couple weeks. We've all seen that. And it's always the thing, like, how do you recreate that? And nobody knows that, or else they would do it at will.
Yeah, it's what I'm learning in my years of creating content. I've took the opposite approach, I think, from most people who would probably be in my shoes. Most people would be going for the views, and I just kind of, as you can probably see with the long form content that I've been creating with my Grooves and Motivation Live, I just kind of veered away from trying to chase the hottest trend or trying to chase what's happening. Because for me, I've been on YouTube since about 2009, I want to say. I started my channel way back then, and I remember posting something on Instagram probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I was, just kind of promoting my YouTube channel on Instagram to, hey, come over and follow me. At the time I had about 1,900 subscribers total on YouTube, and I had been on there for about 7 years at that point. So I started seeing massive growth once I really started finding my thing, instead of trying to, like you were saying just a second ago, trying to figure out how I could recreate and put my own spin on something someone else done that was popular. Once I really kind of locked into what my thing was, it really started paying off. It wasn't immediate. I've never had a video to go viral per se, but over time, I think the compound interest of views has kind of pushed me over. Now people are catching up to a lot of my older content, and they're finding out, and a lot of the subscribers are coming from older videos that I put out.
It seems like you got a couple videos. It seems like I was checking this, and maybe something around 300,000 views or something. You've got something. You got a couple videos like that. Now, I was like, okay.
But it was like I said, those videos accumulated over time. I guess I'm talking about the videos that just come right out of the gate, because you see these content creators like they create a video. They create a video and it's like in 2 days it's like 30,000-40,000 views. Yeah. Or more, depending on, and it's twice the size of their subscriber base,
Right.
Yes.
And that's always a challenge too, because you have the thing where you have these sort of secret watchers, ninja watchers, some folks call them, where they're not subscribed, they don't make any comments, they won't like the videos, but they're always there checking the stuff out.
Yep.
And I look at my demographics frequently, and well, first of all, YouTube it's mostly guys.
Yeah.
So that's just what it is. It's mostly guys. So whatever breakdown of demographics you get, you have to first understand that it's mostly guys that are watching videos.
Yep.
But my demographic is really leans towards guys and men. So so what is it? It's like 95% or something like that.
Yeah.
Men are watching, and then it'll break it down based on like the, what the age group is. And as of late, the age group has gotten younger, which has been a positive thing. I've tried to do a few things to get some younger folks, especially, folks that are looking at maybe going to college and stuff like that, because this is a part of my sort of recruiting kind of mechanism to let folks know what I'm doing and where I'm teaching at and stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah, it varies. Yeah, I look at my demographics too, and I see the age group, and I know I attract a certain age demographic. I don't know why. It's like I know I have this little window of people that I attract almost across every platform. I guess that's just what it is. I got some things I feel like that appeal to a younger audience, but the majority, they're kind of within that mid-range kind of demographic. And I don't know, man. I guess I'm not as youthful as I once was.
Well, I and I don't know that. So I'll tell you the thing that has helped to get younger folks is those hot leg videos.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So they're super short. They are, and YouTube does the shorts thing. So I've got them on YouTube. I've got them on Instagram and on TikTok.
Okay.
And it's interesting too, because now hey, I don't know what to say about this, but
Thank you so much for watching my video so far. If you'd like to support, there are several ways to do so below. Also, likes are free. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to the video.
I don't know what to say about this, but on Instagram, most of my followers are guys. On TikTok, most of my followers are women.
Uh-oh.
right. So it's strange how that works, but I think it tells you a little bit about those platforms.
Yeah.
And I know some of these some of the bigger content creators, and something that they will frequently talk about is like, you have to treat like every platform like it's like a separate thing.
Absolutely.
So one mistake I think I was making at one point, I was like, why am I going to repost that video on this other platform? Hey, if people want to see it, they can just go whatever. But no, it's like totally different universes. There are folks that they won't even go on Instagram. All they do is TikTok, or they won't go on TikTok. All they do is Instagram, or all they do is YouTube, or whatever. So if you have content that's on the other platforms, then they may or may not ever see it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think for me, because I was all over the place, wearing, no pun intended, wearing a lot of hats. But I think I focused all of my energy on trying to do YouTube, because that for me was the biggest platform of engagement. You mentioned the licks video with the younger people. That's actually my highest watched video. I think where I'm breaking down like the 6 grooving licks or something like that I did.
Yeah, right. I think, that's right. That's
literally like one of my most popular videos of all time is that video. And I found a vein there, because that was something that I've always done, and I just started throwing videos up on YouTube, and I noticed every time I put a video up like that, people would come, they would kind of flock over to my channel to come and try to check out those licks videos. And so I just started, putting more and more content like that. And yeah, man, it's interesting, the people that come over because of those. Everybody wants to play hot licks, like you say,
Right. It's and that's a funny thing too, because it's been something that I have actually resisted, because okay, so I have this collection, and by the way, all of these videos that are happening right now, they're reposts, because that collection has been done for about a year.
Oh wow.
So I started in this, a couple months short of a year. I started in December of 2019, videoing one every day.
Okay.
And that, and so 2020 was a leap year. So the collection is 366 hot licks. And they've been transcribed and transposed into all keys. And it's like a 980 page document that's on my website for people to buy it. And it's like $40.
Okay.
Which is pretty inexpensive for what it is. But I started reposting those because I realized that first of all, YouTube just started doing the YouTube Shorts.
Yes.
And I wanted to get in on that. And then also Instagram started doing the Reels as a response to TikTok.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I don't have any Reels up. What can I do? I was like, okay, well, I'll just repost these videos. And so that's what I've been doing. And of course, it's almost predictable. Folks that tended to comment on a lot of my content, a lot of those videos they hadn't seen, or they didn't notice them when they happened the first time.
Wow.
So, it just, it worked out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I was saying, I resisted the whole licks thing because that's not the kind of player I am. I'm not the kind of player that, okay, let me work this lick out, and then when I'm playing, now I can get my hot licks in. I try to be a lot more conversational, you know, like I'm trying to listen and I'm trying to respond to what people are saying. And when I was in college, we frequently would have these sort of playing sessions where we would so part of the rules, it was like a jam session, but the part of the rules were you couldn't play any hot licks. Right? So that's stuff that you like worked out so that you can like impress people. Like you couldn't play any of that.
Yeah.
And we knew each other well enough, and we knew each other's playing well enough that we knew when cats were doing that.
Yeah.
So we'd be like, nah, that's, hey, we know you like that one. Nah. So it would force you to like focus on like fundamentals, you know, really spelling the changes out well, being more conversational, interactive, and all that kind of stuff, which to me is like that's one of the beauties of the music. I mean, that whole like language analogy really works well with music.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I agree. I think I'm the same way. And I was talking about, I think you may have caught a piece of this on my live the other day. I was talking about, you know, I kind of used YouTube just to work out those kind of ideas and really get comfortable with, because I grew up playing mostly gospel music, very strict, like quartet gospel, you know what I'm saying? Like I was playing guitar at the time and you wasn't playing no licks in there. It's just, you know, you're playing, if you're going to play the bass, you're going to play pocket. You're right. And you're not getting to do a lot of stuff. And when I went to college, I started doing jazz studies on guitar, but all that stuff that I was playing even then was just Freddie Green style, you know, just really, you know, we're just keeping chord changes at this point. And I would take solos every now and again. So from the standpoint of really having a lot of chops, I knew a couple of things, but I struggled for many years with connecting lines and like you're saying, being more conversational. I knew how to kind of get in because of that pocket playing all those years. I knew how to get in and get out and just get back in the meat of the song. But I started working really hard, probably like in the early 2000s, on really trying to be more conversational. Around 2009, you know, I had been working out a lot on bass and got a lot more confident. I started writing a lot more material and I wanted to put out a record. So I wanted to be able to converse a little bit better with the music, because I've always been a producer in terms of songwriting and all this stuff. So I hear music from the standpoint of the band rather than an individual. And so I wanted to be able to be more expressive. So I started using different things because all the gigs I had, I wasn't able to do that. So I started using like YouTube as an outlet to like really just kind of flesh those ideas out and just, you know, get out of my comfort zone. That's another thing I struggled with back in the day, was just, I've always been a perfectionist. So, you know, and I could tell just by the way you play, you're probably a perfectionist as well. So it's like we second guess everything that we do because it always has to be this, always has to be that. And so I think me putting myself out and allowing the feedback to happen made me get more comfortable. And in turns, I talk about a lot of this in my book with 10 Ways to Success, The Working Musician. I talked about all these different things, these different platforms that I created for myself to make myself get comfortable with certain things. And so whereas you were kind of, I guess, kind of coming up in the jazz scene with a lot of cats that played, I was around few cats that could stretch out like that. So I wasn't around it enough to really internalize it. So I had to create a lot of those things for myself. So when I did go to those jam sessions, I didn't look crazy when I do step out and do something. So all that being said, I use YouTube as a way to just kind of get ideas out. I'm like, I'm going to gig and get paid over here. They're going to call me to play these songs and all this kind of stuff. I'll just use YouTube to just goof off and really to be honest with it. And people were hearing the things that I was playing and wanted to know, okay, what are you doing? And so I'm like, okay, I just learned this. I'll just show you what I did. So it kind of became that thing for me over the years. Naturally, I've always been one to share any ideas I get. I've never been one of those guys, but no, I learned this lick. You're not gonna get it. Go learn your own lick. You know, or I learned this. I learned this scale. I learned how to put this together. Like if I learn it naturally, I share it because that's for me. That's a way of me retaining what I know if I share it with someone. So I kind of started just pretty much using YouTube to my advantage to do that, and launched a whole platform on my website just from doing that same thing you said, creating course content and all that kind of stuff with people who were very interested in spending money and learning the stuff that I was showing. Yeah. So it kind of worked out long term for me when it just really started out as a hobby. Honestly, I didn't really take YouTube that serious when I started. It was just a hobby.
So do you I'm sure you're familiar with, but do you check out like Scott's bass lessons?
Yeah, I've seen his stuff. I've seen a good bit of Scott's stuff.
Yeah. He and he's his platform has grown crazy. Mm-hmm. I think it grew a lot during the quarantine also.
Okay.
The pandemic or whatever. And he had on he did a special, I guess, package or whatever with Gary Willis.
Yeah.
I interviewed Gary. That was a very very interesting thought-provoking conversation we had. The super good dude, very generous and everything. I was asking him some questions about because his whole thing is about minimalism, right? So he's trying to like move and use the least amount of pressure as possible.
Okay.
And I kind of came from like I was playing too hard, like, and I started having some issues with my hands. My hands were falling asleep and stuff. And I was concerned. I was like, do I have carpal tunnel? What's going on? Thankfully I don't have carpal tunnel, and I didn't have carpal tunnel. Okay. But it was a combination of things. It was so your nerves, they don't get longer. If you get bigger, your nerves stay the same size. Okay. And so what happens is, especially around your shoulders, you can be pinching your nerves, and then it'll make your hands go to sleep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so part of it had to do with being more relaxed when I was playing, mm-hmm. and trying to keep my shoulders down. And then the other part was honestly, I reduced the string tension. I started playing on lighter tension stuff.
Okay.
I did that for a while. I play guitar also. I was playing on really heavy stuff initially because I played bass first. And then when I started playing guitar, I was trying to as far as how thick and how much tension were on the strings, I was trying to emulate certain things from the bass. Mm-hmm. And so I started playing on stuff like I was playing on oh goodness, 11s and 12s and like that. Wow. But and I was playing on those on I'd be playing on a Strat.
Oh wow.
But I'd have 11s or 12s like that. And so I was like, okay, what can I do to try to reduce? Because I found out that Alan Holdsworth and Frank Gambale, I interviewed Frank also, they both played on 9s. And I was like, oh snap. Okay, if these cats are playing on 9s, let me see if I can get myself down to 9s. So then I stepped down to 9s. I mean, I had to do it sequentially. And then I started doing the same thing on bass. And then I stopped having as many issues with my hands. Yeah. But so I was interested in him, talking to Gary about that, because I knew his minimalist kind of approach to it. Yeah. Do you have any particular philosophy on I don't know, hand positioning or your technique or playing, playing relaxed or?
I definitely use a lighter gauge string. I can see the difference. When I first started my first bass, I talked about this a while ago. My first bass I bought was like a Fender Jazz Mexican. It's like a deluxe, and I had one of those, and it, heavier strings. And one of the things I didn't like about that bass, not that it was the bass's fault, but I felt like I had to work really, really hard. And coming from playing guitar, going back and forth to bass, that's a big stretch. And it was not comfortable for me. And I think I eventually bought a Warwick. I bought a Warwick thumb bass. If you ever play one of those basses, the neck is pretty small on that bass, and it's pretty comfortable to play. It's not a huge bass. The neck is pretty small, and it's really comfortable to get it's a thick neck, but it's small. So it's comfortable to get your hands around. So that made me very comfortable. I noticed when I went down in my string gauge, I started playing a lot more comfortable and a lot more relaxed. Normally, I kind of tilt the neck of my bass when I'm standing. When I'm sitting, most of the time, I'm playing like this. But when I stand, as you can probably see in my logo, my bass is kind of up like that. And I find that my arms are really relaxed when I'm playing like this. When everything is kind of sitting right, I'm very, very relaxed. There's not a lot of pulling happening here. It's not a lot of pulling happening here. So when I'm standing, I'm pretty relaxed when I'm playing, and I can, whether I'm thumping or whether I'm, just going finger style, my hands are pretty relaxed. And again, I use a lighter gauge string. I kind of got into the ramps years ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago, maybe a little bit more. And honestly, when I first got into it, I just thought it was a cool look. I was like, I just like the look.
It is
of
a
the
cool
ramp.
look.
Yeah, when I saw it at first, I'm like, man, that's kind of cool. That was around the time that Matt Garrison he's still tearing it up, but that's around the time. Matt Garrison, you had Richard Bona, you had all these guys. Of course, Gary Willis, of course, being one of the inventors of that, and so many others like Hadrian Farad and so many others. Hadrian Farad. I don't want to say it wrong.
Farad.
Okay. So many different players were using the ramp. I'm like, man, that looks cool. And so let me try it out. And I found out, and then I think I watched a video with Gary explaining the science behind it. I'm like, okay, I get it now. And I noticed the more I lighten up on my touch in my right hand, the faster I could play. And the more comfortable it felt. I felt like I wasn't digging in, working as hard. And I was really working out, because at that time I was kind of working through the Matt Garrison 4-finger technique on my right hand. I kind of got comfortable with it. And then I eventually went back, to the 2 fingers, because it wasn't, I didn't really use it enough for the type of music I was playing. So I was like, I kind of went back to the 2 fingers. But I was experimenting, trying all of this different stuff. So yeah, I guess in a nutshell, to answer your question, I experimented with a lot of different things concerning technique to finally land kind of where I play now. Again, when I'm sitting, when my arm is like just in a relaxed position, see, I got a bass here. Like when I'm just in a relaxed position, I'm normally kind of playing like this, and I'm really relaxed. My arm look like it's really straining or bent, but it's not. For me, it's like it's just really relaxed, because I don't have this thing here happening like a lot of guys. I don't have that happening. It's just, I'm a lanky dude, so that it's a really relaxed position for me. But again, when I stand, I'm more than likely I'm playing like this, and my arms is a little bit more straightened. It's kind of hard to show it now without the strap on, but yeah, it's a pretty comfortable. You can see that right hand, and sometimes I'll even lift out my arm a little bit or angle the bass just to get a little bit more straightened wrist. It's something I think Sheree Reed had started talking about years ago, that he was kind of really working on getting better technique and trying to look into the longevity. And I think that's what really made me, because I heard cats talk about it, but you know, I was kind of a fan of charades at the time. So when he mentioned that, it's like one of those things like, oh, okay, like not cause charade doing it, I'm going to do it. It's like, I maybe need to pay a little bit more attention to this thing if I'm going to be playing long term. And I was noticing after, you know, I played at a pretty, one of the largest churches in Atlanta for a while. And we would do these intense services and all this kind of stuff. Or if I'm on the road with somebody and we're playing an intense set, my hands would start to get tired, or my, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so I had to figure out something that was more comfortable so that I could, you know, play a long set and still have my endurance all the way throughout the duration of the set.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I you know, the church I worked at for 5.5 years, you know, good relationships with folks in that church, Vineyard Columbus.
Okay.
And you know, I played a lot of bass, and we do 3 services in a weekend. It was a lot of rehearsals on the Saturday, so we rehearse for, you know, a couple hours on Saturday, then we do the service on Saturday, then we do a run through Sunday morning, and then do it again 2 more times, service 2 more times. And during the initial rehearsal, there was also a run through. So basically we'd be playing the same set of music 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah.
And it's an evangelical church, so it's a lot of do 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 do, right? It's a lot of that, so kind of busy bass lines. And I tend to be pretty busy anyway, as a player. So I just started noticing. I mean, I'd be playing all this stuff, and in my, especially my left hand, it's like, come on, man.
You start feeling like that tightness in it. Yeah.
Well, part of it, you know, I was doing a lot of stretching and stuff, but really the issue was my hand would just start falling asleep, you know, and I'm up on the platform, I'm playing, and we're on the second song. We have got 3 more tunes to play or something, and my hand is already starting to fall asleep. And if I could do this thing where I shake my arm out, and then it would, I could feel my hand again. But sometimes, you know, half of the song, my hand is asleep.
Yeah.
And so I had to figure something out to fix that issue. I don't have that issue anymore, thankfully. And that was some years ago, but really kind of rethinking what I was doing, how I was holding the instrument, stuff like stretching, playing more relaxed, less tension on the strings. I always have played with pretty low action, but like, if even possible, to play lower. Something that Gary said, which I thought was a really good point. Of course, Gary said it, so it's a good point.
Right.
He said that he thinks that bass players are lazy, and I was like, I was trying to figure out what he was saying, and then he was like, yeah, you know, because they want to bring these really small amps to the gig. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is you put the amp down, it's by the drummer, and you have the thing cranked, and so you're playing really hard, and you're actually hurting yourself, and you're not getting the sound that you really want to get.
No, not at all.
And so he was talking about his rig, which is like 215s, and he was describing the head. It's got 1,000 watts or something huge, right?
Yeah.
So and he says by having that, he can play super light and it sounds like he wants it to. And one thing he said in our interview, which I thought was really, I'm like, okay, I need to start doing this like immediately. He said, basically turn the amp way up and then see how light you can play to get the sound that you want.
I've heard him say that before. Yeah.
And I was like, you know, he said, make the amp do the work.
Yep.
Rather than trying to dig in and trying to, you know, because you're going to play beyond the sort of where the note is going to sound good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's a really, really good point. I remember him saying that years ago, and I started kind of trying out that theory, but I had to also figure out where's that threshold of too hot, you know?
Oh, right.
You know what I'm saying? Figuring out where's that threshold of too hot. But I definitely, it's something I kind of started taking into consideration. And, you know, being aware of my own dynamics, you know, how I'm approaching just trying to be musical. You know, I think I do a lot of that when I'm recording. I try to put a lot of thought into what I want to say musically. So obviously when I'm trying to perform some of those songs or redo some of those songs, I'm thinking that way, and I'm thinking about being expressive, kind of like The Voice. You know, you as with our vocals, we know we have all this headroom that if I want to get super loud right now, I can go there. But most of the time I'm using dynamics and I'm talking at a really low level. As a parent, you know, sometimes when you need to like really get a point across, it's like, I know how to take it there. But most of the time if I'm talking at a really low level because I understand that I have that headroom. But it's right what he said, you know, a lot of times we're maxing out everything and then wondering why we're not getting that desired tone that we're really looking for, because everything is maxed out. Yeah.
Also, it kind of adds to that whole, you know, modern music seems so compressed. You know, everything is like at the same volume all the time. And if you're playing through an amp where you're having to dig in like crazy just to be heard, you can't go anywhere. There's no variance. You can't play soft because you can't be heard.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't sound good. So,
I think it's a never ending journey, because you're always discovering, well, at least for me anyway, you're always discovering something new. Like I haven't had that particular bass that long, but I'm still just going through it and just discovering where the real sweet spots are, you know.
I saw the video. I saw the video where you were talking about your new instrument. Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm happy about it, but at the same time, it's that challenge of like, I got to play this thing and it has to sound really good, you know. So where's the sweet spot at on this thing, you know?
Well, it sounds great. Every time I've heard you play it, it sounds good.
Thank you, man.
All right, so one thing that is obviously one thing that is obvious from watching your videos, from just hearing you talk, you have that you sound like you went to church. Your voice, the way you talk. I mean, I've been in church for, you know, all my life and everything, and I know a lot of preachers and stuff. And there's a certain thing that's in their voice, the way that they speak, enunciate, articulate, the, you know, just the, you know, there's just this nuance in the voice, the pacing, you know, and if I didn't hear you play anything or never heard you talk about playing in church, I would just know it already.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
No. It's definitely a good thing. It's definitely a good thing. I mean, Black church has been responsible for so much, you know, so many positive things, especially in music. Mm-hmm. It's been so impactful, so influential. So, I mean, you know, to this day, it's hard to find successful like R&B singers, soul singers, neo soul singers, that didn't get their start in church, that didn't at least, sing in church. Or I've heard, I've interviewed some folks where they have told me, well, I didn't really sing in church, but then they'd list all of these gospel artists that they had been listening to, so it's, not exactly the same as coming up in church, but still they're getting it from the same source.
Yeah, I can't deny, man. I am a church kid to the heart. As much as I am a country boy, I am a church kid. Born and raised in church, and I have several preachers in my family, and so I've been around a lot of old folk and preachers growing up. So here I spent a lot of time just hanging around a lot of different stuff. So it was I think it's probably a natural thing for me to just pick up on dialect and just the way I speak and that kind of thing, simply because I just been around it pretty much all my life. And I don't consider myself, I got to be careful how I say this. I don't consider myself super religious, quote unquote, if that makes sense. But I am a believer for sure. But I don't consider myself one of those people who just do a lot of religious rhetoric in the negative sense of it. People they know how to do church, and they know how to go through the motions of that whole thing with church, but there's nothing else there. And I don't consider myself one of those guys. I'm very, very serious about what I represent. Two of my biggest things, as I've developed over the years as a musician, and I think another point of my transition in the way that I do my YouTube channel, I want to be very clear about what I represent. And two huge things for me are integrity and accountability. Whether you're in a church, whether you're on an R&B gig, whatever the case may be, those two things are huge for me. And I think it's a lost art amongst people now, because people don't really value integrity. And I'm seeing that more and more. I work as a coach, a consultant, work with different churches and that kind of thing as a consultant. And so I can see it inside the church. I can see it outside the church, where accountability, some people will even become upset if you, like me as a consultant, kind of exposing certain things that you need to fix type deal. Not from a self-righteous standpoint, but hey, these are things, this could be a potential problem for you. Let's really work on this right here. Some people will become upset with you if you start exposing their lack of integrity, their lack of accountability. And I find it amazing how many musicians lack that. And we don't want to be held accountable. We want to be treated and respected for the craft and the time that we put in the craft. But the other half of it, in terms of your integrity, can I count on you? Will you show up? Will you be on time? Will you be high when you get to the gig? All those types of things. I mean, these are real things. I mean, just
you're right.
I've been out here for a while, and one of the things I noticed, especially moving to Atlanta, I've been in Atlanta since 2006. The scene was already hot when I got here, but it was, really taking off. I've seen a lot of musicians, a lot of known musicians, of who a lot I won't mention, but they came in one way. But because of industry and surroundings and peers, they're now somebody else. They almost like they lost who they were, trying to fit into a system to be accepted. And to me, that's like, okay, who's holding you accountable to who you said you were? Because you still have, I take this YouTube thing very seriously, because I understand that there's some little kid that's watching me. And if they look at me as this, man, he's somebody special, kind of like I looked at Victor Wooten and Jerry Willis and all these guys. Well, I feel like I have a duty, not that I can't be myself, but I have a duty to be responsible and be accountable, because these cats are watching me. These young kids are watching me. Not that I'm their parent or anything like that, but I have a responsibility to act in integrity. If we want to make a better tomorrow, what are we presenting to the people who are looking at us? So sorry to get on that rant, but for me, it's that those two things for me are very, very important. So that's why I try to be really, really clear about what I represent from my Instagram all the way to my YouTube channel, because what a lot of people don't realize is that many people are using your social media platforms as a background check on you, who you are. You know, they're checking everything. They're checking everything out about you. So if even I did it in a position where, you know, I'm having to hire musicians, and these are cats I don't know. This is a different city. So I'm trying to check out, okay, who is this guy? He said he's available. I check out his Facebook page. I see some crazy stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm not hiring. I'm not going to call him for this gig, because that's my name on the line. That's my integrity on the line.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just be honest. There are a lot of great musicians these days.
Absolutely.
Okay. And the quickest way to sort of make yourself a pariah is by showing up late to gigs, showing up high for a gig, wearing the wrong clothes to the gig, heck, totally missing a gig, because you don't have an adequate, calendar system, to document when stuff is happening and when people need you there and what the dress code is and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say this. And I interviewed Leland Sklar.
Okay.
And I said this in that interview. I said, it seems to me that disproportionately stars are jerks. I hate to say it. And it doesn't seem to, you know what his response was? I'm going to show you exactly what his response was. That's what he did.
Yeah.
And this cat has played on everybody's record with everybody all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a special sort of experience when you meet somebody like a Victor Wooten, who is like a super good dude, a humble guy, and is not really into any of that kind of foolishness.
Yeah.
So it really is like a special thing.
I agree.
But the jerk thing is not necessary.
The way I look at that, not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
The way I look at that, man, I guess the way I came up, the humble beginnings thing for me, I understand as a musician, I'm not the greatest in the world, and I struggle to. I have a lot of natural talent, but I work really hard to be able to do the little bit that I can do well. I work very, very hard, and it was a struggle to be able to do it. So I understand, number one, the side of people who just don't get it like that. I was one of those people who just didn't get it. Being naturally gifted, but it didn't click for me like it did for everyone else. And then the other side of that, I understand, man, all of this can be over in a second.
Yeah.
Something can happen, like how you were talking about your hand going to sleep, man. You can have a massive, not speaking this on anybody, but you have a massive stroke or anything, and you wake up one morning and your limbs don't work. So each day that you get to do that, you're allowed, you're graced to be able to do this. We should be grateful rather than arrogant. I don't care how hard you work. I feel like I work just as hard as anybody else, because this wasn't easy for me, but I don't walk around with a pompous, arrogant attitude as if I accomplished something. And man, it's a little 6-year-old kid that can come and chop your head off if you start getting a big head. It's like, I don't care who you are. there's always somebody better. So to hold yourself at some high esteem, and that, not saying anything is wrong with being confident or having self-confidence, but I think there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And a lot of musicians, we ride that line. We almost 2 feet right across that line, you know, of just being arrogant and trying to play it off as confidence. And it's like, some of it I think is overcompensating for other things that we feel insecure about. So that's the only good thing we have going. So we're going to use that to try to make ourselves appear to be a lot greater than what we are. Because let's be honest, a lot of these cats, your home, your marriage is falling apart. You don't have a good relationship. I'm just being honest. You don't have a good relationship with your kids or somebody. You know, it's a lot of different variables that you don't have going on. And the one thing you can really brag about is being a great musician, and that's it. But your dad be dad.
Oh my goodness. You know, I talk frequently about the sort of imbalance that seems to be more common amongst artists than anyone. And I'll tell you, a lot of behavior issues, you know, artists, musicians, they're allowed to stay that way because people will have overlooked it because they were so they had so much natural ability. So it's just like, and then that whole, well, you know, he's an artist or she's an artist, so you know they're you know what those creatives, you know what they're like. And I'm like, no. Or the thing that, you know, and sorry to say, I've seen this up close, you know, too many times. But the thing, you know, cats running around in the church and getting caught and nobody really sitting them down. You know, it's like, well, but we still need the organist, or we still need, you know, the choir director, or we still need, you know, well, you know, they are the minister of the music. You know, what are we going to do if, you know, that I'm telling you, that stuff is, it's very like dime a dozen, man. And it's really too bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'll tell you it's at the detriment of the person that's allowed to get away with that stuff. Mm-hmm. It hurts them more than it hurts anyone else. And it seems to me to be, it exposes, if there's a church that will allow that kind of stuff, that kind of behavior, it shows that the church is more interested in the product than the person.
And we can,
and that doesn't seem right to me.
And we can end on that. Don't get me started, man. Oh wow, that's yeah. I again, I've had the pleasure of, I've been playing in church since I was 12 years old, and I worked in churches that had from 3 members to over 30,000 members. And what you just said, it's, I don't want to say, because we all know that there are exceptions to the rules.
You're right.
And this is not a blanket statement for all churches, so I don't want anybody to get offended. But from what I've seen and what I've experienced working in a number of ministries, generally it's about the same, no matter if it's a small startup ministry to a huge mega ministry. It's just the priorities oftentimes are misplaced based on the level of the talent.
Yeah. It's really it's, you know, and I want to digress a bit too, because you were saying the thing, you know, there's always somebody better, so that should be, you know, that, you know, we can use that as a reason for us not to let our head get too big. Mm-hmm. I would also say, though, that even if there wasn't anyone better, that's still not a good reason.
Yeah.
That's still not a good reason to have a big hit.
Yeah.
You know, and part of it is because of the reasons that you cited. The thing about Okay, well, you got that together, but hey, what else is happening? And have you ever heard the term musician's physique?
I don't think I've
And-
heard that one.
Yeah. Okay. So,
I may have.
do you think it's a pejorative?
Yeah, I haven't heard that one.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying it's a pejorative.
Okay.
Musician's physique. I mean, it's because cats, they spend all this time practicing and stuff, and they'll let themselves get way out of shape, you know, and you know that's important. And I know that the Protestant thing is to create these sort of divisions or separations between spirit, soul, and body. Frequently you'll hear people say, well, you know, you're a spirit, you know, you have a soul and you live in a body. And they're trying to create a hierarchy. They're trying to say the spirit is the most important thing, then the soul, then the body. And that's sort of the way that is delineated. Now, I think unwittingly what we're doing there is we are saying that the real us is inside. So what we look like doesn't have anything to do with who we are. And that's not true. Now, I'm not going to say, look, you know, everything needs a balance. Okay. But if you are, you know, and I'm not trying to get on people that have had struggles with their weight. That's not the point here. The point is that it's obvious that something is wrong, and you are shortening your life by not getting certain aspects of your eating, physical fitness, all that kind of stuff together. But if you're also, you got a big head because you're talented, then, and that allows you to like overlook the fact that, hey, but you're not healthy. I mean, how are you going to keep playing? How are you going to keep doing the music if you're not healthy? You got to take care of yourself.
You have to take care of yourself. It's I made it a part of my routine. I went on this journey, and you're an entrepreneur as well, and I could tell you work out, you big dude. But I made it a part of my journey years ago. I started really studying wealthy people. I really like started doing a deep. I wanted to study habits of people who were successful, people who were wealthy, and ultimately well-rounded, well-balanced people, because, you know, I've been in the church all my life. So I've been reading the Bible. I've been doing all these things all my life, but I'm also seeing these patterns of church people who are very unhealthy, a lot of which who are not entrepreneurs. Not that there's anything wrong with working with anybody. I'm not knocking any of that stuff, but I just seen, to digress from all that, I seen a habit of things that I didn't like. I said, so let me figure out this other thing that I don't know enough about. And so one of the things I start studying with a lot of these wealthy people, they have habits. They have success habits that they do. And most of them get up early in the morning. When I was young, I'll admit I hated school with a passion. You know, I have a bachelor's degree and everything from the University of North Alabama, but I hated school like with a passion. My son, he does well in school, but he's a lot like me. He could care less. I hope he gets better. But I didn't, and I say it this way, I didn't understand the value of it, and I didn't understand how, you know, meaningful it was to me because it wasn't presented to me that way. So that's why I didn't like it, because I didn't find any value in the stuff that I was getting and the stuff that I was being given. And once I got on this journey and started, you know, studying these people, start studying these different success people and reading a lot of different books, I understand that they were getting up. Part of what they were saying, to your point, they get up and they work out. You know, that's a huge part of their day, is they get up and they focus on getting their bodies in shape. One of the things I do that's part of my routine, I'm up first thing in the morning. You know, my personal routine, I pray. I get up and I'm reading a devotion, some type of devotional. After reading a devotional, I'll listen to something uplifting, something inspiring. That can be a sermon, that can be a motivational speech, whatever the case may be. But I'm listening to something in the first hour or so of my day that's feeding me, not garbage, health food, in a sense, mentally. I'm feeding myself something early in the morning every single day, because I understand that it's all connected, it's all related, because that allows me to take control of my day. You know, I work out. I kind of got injured a couple of weeks ago, so I haven't been really able to work out in the last few weeks. But normally, and I'm like, I ain't in the gym just kind of just crushing it out and nothing like that, but I'm doing kind of maintenance stuff, pushing myself every now and again to work and target certain parts that I really want to tone and tighten and build up. But for the most part, it's just keeping something consistent happening every single day. And then I move into whatever the next part of my day is. And I notice since I've been doing that, the way that I play and the way that I express, it's a lot more free. It's a lot more fluid, you know, and I feel a lot better about what I do. And I also find doing that, I find so much more time in my day. I wrote 10 Ways to Success. It's a small book, but I wrote that in my morning prep time. Like, I wrote that whole book in my morning prep time, just consistently doing it. And I think, to what you were saying as well, it just shows discipline. When you can do that, you discipline yourself to hold yourself, going back to being accountable, you hold yourself accountable with that discipline of always doing something and keeping your word to you. Hey, I'm going to take care of my body. Hey, I'm going to take care of my mind, my spirit, all of it. And I'm going to practice, you know, because we know by default, we're going to practice something anyway. But all this other stuff, it's easier to say, I'll get to that later. But disciplining yourself to do it, especially when you don't want to do it, because I don't want to get up and work out at 6 in the morning or 6:30 or whatever time I get started working out. I don't want to get up and do that. But I know it's a part. If I want to be around here, if I want to play with my kids, I got to get it together and keep it together, you know? So, yeah.
You know, you used the word earlier, integrity, you know, and all of the things that you're mentioning, the core of that is integrity. So if you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. Even if you're the only person that knows that you were supposed to do that, you need to do it. And because if you don't, and you start to create a pattern of not doing what you say, nothing that you write down, no agenda items, nothing on your calendar, none of that stuff means anything.
Nope.
Because the very first thing didn't happen, and that is you just following through and doing what it is that you said that you were going to do.
Yeah.
And that is of critical importance. That's the core of everything. And you know, I tell my students frequently, discipline is the great equalizer.
That's good.
So discipline is the thing that, first, no one is born disciplined. You've seen a baby.
Yeah.
Everybody is born lazy.
3 of them.
That's right. Everybody is lazy.
Yeah.
Everybody is born lazy. Facts. So why is it that some folks are able to exhibit more discipline than others? Well, you know, gravity is pulling down on all of us. You know, it's not, nobody gets an easy road. So and I think it starts with little things. I think that seeing other people that have discipline, that's helpful. I'll tell you, for me, I realized at one point, that if I didn't get more disciplined, that I might as well eliminate a high percentage of the stuff on the list of things that I wanted to accomplish in my life. I might as well just get rid of those things.
Yeah.
Because none of that stuff is going to happen.
Yeah.
Zero of that will happen until I get the discipline thing together. I'm actually quite intuitive. And so stuff like, having a calendar, having to-do lists, all of that kind of stuff, that's stuff that got put on top. That's stuff that I had to develop. That's not stuff that I was born with.
Yeah.
And I think the sooner that people come to grips with that discipline is not a quality that some people are just born with, and then that in some way that releases them from the responsibility of developing discipline.
Yeah.
Right? The sooner that they can just come to grips with that, the better off they're going to be.
Yeah.
And people that are sort of pacing, they're like, I'm just kind of waiting for stuff to get started. At some point when I get the right job, I'll get engaged. I'll get disciplined when the right stuff happens. Wake up. This is your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is your life. This is your life right now. What's happening right now? This is your life. So
Absolutely.
Get that stuff together. Get it together now.
Yeah.
What does it say in the Bible? Behold, today is the day of salvation. Right?
Yeah.
Now, not tomorrow. You don't know if tomorrow's coming.
You don't know. You
Got to get it together now.
It's so funny. It goes back to one of the things you mentioned in terms of, you didn't necessarily say this, but the idea of making excuses or looking at someone else as if they have it better than you. I know for a long time in my mind, I thought people who had perfect pitch do you have perfect pitch?
I don't.
Okay. I don't either. I think perfect relative or something like that. If that's a thing, that's what I've been told. But I thought people who had like perfect pitch had this advantage over everybody else where they didn't have to practice or work as hard because everything, they can hear everything in key and it all comes natural to them. Well, I guess God got a funny way of kind of showing me. It's my oldest daughter. She's 9 years old. She has perfect pitch. We discovered it when she was about 3. But she also has something called synesthesia.
Yep. Sometimes, often it's the case that they accompany each other.
Yeah, and so that's how we found it out, because she was calling out songs by colors.
Yep.
And I didn't know it. I thought she was just referring to a lyric or something in the song. Daddy, can you play the green song? Oh, okay. Green song. I know that dude would say green in the lyrics, so I'll go and play the song. But later we found out that she was hearing it in color. She has perfect pitch. But one thing I noticed about my daughter is that she can hear it. She can pick up on stuff, but that doesn't make it any easier for her. She still has to put in the work. She still has to practice, just like everybody. And for me, it's like all these years, I'm thinking that these people who have perfect pitch, y'all got it so good because y'all just naturally hear it in key and it's all these different things. It's like, no, they have to put in the work like everybody else. Maybe sometimes the motivation for them is a little bit higher because everything they hear is music. They hear it everywhere. I don't really know the process. I know my daughter, everything is music for her, and it's music and art for her. She draws all the time, and then she You know, she's always hearing everything in music, but she has the tendency to be lazy. And I have to really push her because that's a natural thing. You know, I guess because certain things come easy to her, she has a tendency to not want to work. And I'm having to push her. I'm having to teach her notes and all this kind of stuff. She knows it. She knows where everything is. She can play chords. She's playing with her left hand. She's playing with her right hand. And she just gets it. But I'm having to make her develop, as you were saying earlier, that discipline because she doesn't naturally have it. Just because she has that perfect pitch, she doesn't naturally have the discipline. So it's an internal thing that something have to go off or something has to click for you to where you say, look, I got to do this. I have to figure this out.
Yeah, the perfect pitch thing is very interesting. So I know a whole lot of musicians with perfect pitch, and I've had really in-depth conversations with them about it. One of my best friends has perfect pitch. He's a great trumpet player. I interviewed him. His name's Doug Pierce.
Okay.
Dr. Doug Pierce now. And heavy musician, great composer, great trumpet player. And I've asked him a lot of questions about when he realized he had perfect pitch. It's different for everyone. Camille Thurman, the great singer and saxophonist, we brought her in at Ohio State as part of the 44th annual Ohio State Jazz Festival. And she's also, I've got an interview of her up here. Damian Dragici, let's see, Bobby Floyd, the great pianist, Dave Powers. Dave Powers, actually a great keyboard player that plays it, is the jazz piano instructor at Ohio State.
Okay.
And there's others. But there's a guy named Tim Beato. Rick Beato.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got a big YouTube channel, and now he's got a second channel that's got a bunch of subscribers now too. And he's got a son, and used to, I remember seeing these videos where he's got his son doing all this acrobatic, crazy hearing stuff, spelling stuff out, singing all these notes, spelling them out from top to bottom, cluster chords, all kinds of stuff. And so Rick figured out how to develop perfect pitch in his son. And the way that it always happens is you have to be exposed to a lot of music, in particular music that is harmonically dense when you're really young. Okay, so up to a certain age, you can actually develop perfect pitch. But beyond that age, it's not possible to develop perfect pitch. And there's all of these programs that they're trying to sell you, develop absolute pitch, perfect pitch, and all like this. And it's not possible to develop perfect pitch. Now, what you can do is you can teach yourself how to remember a note, how to memorize a note. And then you can use that as a frame of reference, but that's not perfect pitch. Also, you can learn how to hear certain ambient sounds that tend to be the same thing. So like, what is it? Lights.
NB.
Right. So they at a certain pitch, what is it like? It's a B. It's like a B natural, and it's a little bit flat from B natural. Yep. Or that 60 cycle hum tends to be a particular pitch, right? So you can learn that kind of stuff, but that's not the same as having perfect pitch, which means that you don't require a frame of reference. Mike Smith, he works at Ohio State. He's got perfect pitch. Now, Mike Smith, Camille Thurman, they both have perfect pitch and synesthesia, right? Now, the thing about synesthesia is that it's not the same. They used to think that there was some sort of direct connection between perfect pitch and synesthesia. They seem to accompany each other often. However, the experience that the person has that with synesthesia will be dramatically different than other folks. So it's not like so I had a student, and she had perfect pitch. She had synesthesia, and when she would hear certain notes, she would see numbers or letters that, and the letters would have a color to the letter, right? Other people, they will see sort of an amorphous blob in front of their vision, in their vision, as they're hearing sounds.
Yeah.
So it isn't it's not uniform. It's a kind of a strange thing, and there's some talk about certain keys and them having a certain color, or like C majors, D major seems like it's more bright, or it's more this kind of color. There's other color, there's that kind of metaphorical language that's used.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people have sort of confused the metaphorical language with what happens with some folks with synesthesia, with them actually seeing certain colors, and then they've sort of created a connection that isn't really there. But it's very interesting. It's very fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
When I talked to Damian Dragici about it, he's Romanian. He's Romanian gypsy. Is a pan flute player. Most ridiculous pan flute player you've ever heard. It's just totally ridiculous. Playing like Donnelly on pan flute.
I gotta check him out.
It's crazy stuff. But Damian, in our conversations, he thinks that perfect pitch in general is on a spectrum. Okay, so and it's anywhere from relative pitch to to perfect pitch, and then more refined perfect pitch, right? And when I describe to him what it is that I can do, which is on saxophone, flute, clarinet in particular, I can hear anything. I can listen to anything with those instruments, and I know what notes they're playing. Like, I know the notes they're fingering. So you could detune the instrument. You could push the like on saxophone, you could push the mouthpiece way in so it's like a quarter tone sharp or a whole step sharp, but I'd still be able to tell you what note they're fingering. And that's because with each of those instruments, the timbre is different. The notes are coming out in different places. And so some notes are muffled sounding, some notes are brighter, some are darker, some tend to be a little sharp, some tend to be a little bit flat.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is something to a large extent that anyone can cultivate. But perfect pitch is something that you cannot past a certain age. So it's a really fascinating topic. And, is it easier for somebody that has perfect pitch or not? It seems that skills that are more important are stuff like digital dexterity. Obviously, you need to be able to recognize pitches, like relative pitch. Having developed that's important. But all you have to do to mess somebody up with perfect pitch is detune a piano. So if you say, okay, I'm going to go up a half step, I'm just going to transpose everything up a half step, and they keep playing a B natural. Wait a minute, that's not that note. That's not that note.
Yeah.
What's that note?
They
That's
get really
not that
annoyed.
note.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think in some ways it's an advantage, but in some ways it's actually a disadvantage. And when I was talking to Camille about it, when people are playing out of tune, it really used to really bother her. Like, she had a really hard time with that. And then she started developing the ability to sort of accommodate that. But that was something that she had to learn. You know?
That bothers me now, the wave of hearing something out of tune. Really, it really bothers me. I don't know what I call it. Generally, I can walk in a music store and tune a guitar near perfect. Having not listened to any music, like right now, I can hear the whole, I guess I play guitar kind of like what you're talking about, memorizing pitch. I'm normally pretty close, like, so it's like I'm normally pretty close to like the E, you know what I'm saying, where I can run through all of the pitches without any reference, but I don't consider that perfect for me.
Right.
Because it's not consistent. That's my only thing is like, it's not consistent.
Well, it's the thing is you can memorize things and you can start to recognize timbre, like on guitar or on bass or something. The notes sound different all the way up the neck, right? So you can play the same note all over the place, but you know, I can tell you what string you're playing on, what the note is on that string. You know what I'm saying? Because it sounds different on each string.
Yeah.
Because of the thickness of the strings and tension and everything. So that's like one of those things that just by paying close attention and not just sort of, you know, blasting through stuff like, okay, I'm playing my scales now. And like you turn your ears off and just play finger patterns, right? Instead of doing that, if folks are really listening and paying attention to what's happening, there's a great degree of nuance that you can learn, even though you can't learn perfect pitch.
I got you. Yeah, it's yeah.
Very interesting.
One of those interesting things, definitely, for sure. Definitely one of those interesting things. But yes.
So,
sir.
So you have anything that you would like to plug?
Well, I guess one of the things is for sure my book 10 Ways to Success: The Working Musician. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy like right here. It's like over in the corner somewhere. But that's
But I'll put a link in the description. I can put a link to your website. Is like the book like somewhere easy to.
Yeah, if they go to my shop tab or store tab or whatever on my website, they can find the book. Autographed copy of the book is also available on Amazon, that kind of thing. I wrote that book just from the standpoint of people knowing that you don't have to be famous to be a success in music. I think this is misconception based on what we've seen and what's been displayed. You have to be touring with somebody in order to be relevant. You know, you have to be doing all of these different exotic things in order to be considered a successful musician. And in my own life, I've seen that that's not necessarily true. And then I also see how short-lived that stuff is. And that doesn't make you a success because you've done some things that seem to be successful, because I know a lot of musicians even now who've done a lot of successful things and they have nothing to show for it. They're struggling, and no disrespect to anyone, but it's like once that's over, this artist or these people or that situation is gone and you have nothing else from it. So you were successful in that thing and you've had some success, but ongoing success, are you continuing that? So in the book, I give some really, it's a very easy read, short read. I give some really practical things that the average Joe musician can do to start leveraging certain things that they have in order to create success. And of course, we know that we define what that success is, because my success doesn't look like your success. Success is simply pursuing a worthy cause, whatever that thing. If I was setting out to be a sanitation engineer and I was successful in getting a job, picking up trash, well, I'm successful in what I set out to do based on my own perspective or my own definition of what success was to me. So I think oftentimes we can kind of glamorize musicians who are doing all these other things, but oftentimes we can look over the average person who's doing really great things right there in their local community, or, reaching someone, or even as you're doing right there at Ohio State, reaching so many students that are coming through there. Who knows, you might be bringing up the next Jocko, where you're just as valuable as anybody else whether you're doing, and you've probably done everything, but I don't know, but I'm just saying, using you for an example, sometimes we can glamorize these people who look like they have success, and oftentimes look over these other things that we have right at our fingertips that could bring us sustainable success to where we're not running behind gigs we don't want to do. And we're creating passive income through things that we've created with our own hand. We're not waiting for someone to call us for a session, all these different things. We're actually creating opportunities. One of the things I've been so proud of in 2021 is that I've been able to kind of hire musicians to, I've always been like a one-man band type guy. I do everything. And so I've always I'll get it done myself type of guy. But this year I've been really working to delegate and to hire other people to do stuff. And so to be in a position now with the content that I'm creating and the courses and that kind of thing, to be able to hire other musicians to play on that stuff. And it's not for an artist, it's for something that I created, and I'm able to, put some money in some guys' pockets. I'm really proud of that I've been able to actually do that. And to me, that's success. Is it other degrees of that I want to experience? Of course. But at this current degree that I'm at, one of my desires is to be able to, throw some work some other guys' way, like be able to put some work in somebody else's hand as a musician, and not waiting on an artist to call me to do that. And I've been able to do that this year. And so anyway, I talk about a lot of these things in that book. And so that's, again, one of the things. I have tons of original music that I've created. We're finishing a record up, Jermaine Morgan Band. We did Dreams Work Reality Part 1, released it in 2017, and we got the Part 2 that's coming out soon. I don't have a release date, but I'm super excited about that music. I think I got back to my original intent of the way I write and create music, which means I kind of threw away a lot of my rules. And so I'm excited about, everybody hearing that new project. So, and tons of other things on the website as well. So, yeah.
Right. Well, thank you so much for doing the interview. Let me know if I can be of any assistance to you.
Absolutely.
If you'd like me to come over and return the favor.
Absolutely.
And also, if you wouldn't mind, maybe posting when so this will be live at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, which is Thursday.
Okay.
And I'll send you a link in the morning, and if you could put it on your community tab, that'd be helpful. And if you happen to be around and want to, it's a premiere video.
Okay.
If you happen to be around and you want to be active in the chat, folks always enjoy that. Even if it's just a couple words, that'd be excellent.
Good deal. So that's Eastern time tomorrow?
Eastern time tomorrow, 10 a.m.
Okay. That sounds cool, man. Yeah, you turn it around quick. Generally, I need a few days to get mine out.
Well, this is episode 166.
Okay.
And I started this in March of 2020. This interview series.
Wow.
And
was that because of the pandemic, or it just happened to be?
Well, it was something I wanted to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, the right situation arose, and I'm heavily networked in the music industry, and I was like, okay, I know some folks that are available right now.
Yeah.
For interviews that were not available, wouldn't have been available prior. So, it's really branched out to a lot of different kinds of folks. And that was always my vision, not just to interview musicians. Certainly that's going to be something that will be a focal point. Mm-hmm. But politicians, philanthropists, ministers, academics, athletes, dancers, folks of all different kinds of disciplines. It's my heart, it's my desire to continue to create a community of folks that think differently but that are willing to have conversations.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
All right, man. Well, I'll be seeing you.
Good deal, man. Thank you so much for this, and I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. God bless you.
You too, man.